Greetings and welcome to Save the Tatas, Overcoming Health Disparities Amongst Women of Color, hosted by Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Beta Iota Omega Chapter, and our amazing undergraduate chapters, Alpha Phi at North Carolina A&T State University, Zeta Xi at Bennett College, and Neuro at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I am Crystal Boyce, the proud president of the Beta Iota Omega chapter. Today across the world, under the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, exemplifying excellence through sustainable service administration, we stop to observe our Breast Cancer Impact Day. Over the past 2 years, Alpha Kappa Alpha has made significant strides in the fight against breast cancer around the United States, with our signature mobile mammogram program. Since 2018, the AKA Mobile Mammography Unit has accumulated more than 150,000 miles, providing free mammograms to over 1,000 uninsured or underinsured women. And about 10% of those women screened were recommended for further testing based on abnormalities discovered during their mammograms. During this pandemic, mammography testing numbers have declined, but we hope that they will increase very soon. Additionally, during this time, AKA put the brakes on the traveling, but now are gassing up the unit back to hit the road again starting October 9th. Breast cancer does not stop for COVID-19, and neither does Alpha Kappa Alpha. Today, I honor the legacy of my aunt, Lavera Mathis, who passed on June 11, 2019. Celebrate 2 survivors, my mother-in-law, Brenda Boyce, and Aunt Sherry Jackson. And support all the fighters, admire all the survivors, honor all the taken, and never ever give up hope. We hope tonight you will take notes, learn something new, be inspired, and share the information so we can save the tatas and overcome health disparities amongst women of color. Again, welcome and thanks for joining. Now we will have our meditation by Relita Dawson.
Good evening, everybody. I am Rolita Dawson, one of the chair people of the Target 2 Women's Healthcare and Wellness Committee for the Beta Iota Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I would like to do a meditation. I'm just going to do a quick prayer to help set the environment for this occasion. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Would you please close your eyes and bow your heads, please? Father, thank you for this sorority's initiative to be able to recognize and emphasize awareness on breast cancer. Lord, we know that this disease and every disease is in your hands. And we just praise you right now for all the advances that have been done in science and medicine. God, and we just thank you for our international president, Glenda Glover, for her initiative for us to keep pushing for these impact days. God, I thank you for our bacillus, our anti-bacillus, and the rest of our members in the sorority chapter. And let this program go forth without a hitch. And if it does, it's all good. In your son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Good evening, sorors. Good evening.
Good evening.
Just want to make sure you can hear me. Sometimes I have some audio issues, but today we're doing well. Just want to welcome you and let you know the purpose of this particular program, as well as the purpose in terms of our international program when it comes to breast cancer awareness. The sorority has designated Breast Cancer Awareness Day as October the 5th, 2020. The sorority recognizes that breast cancer results in death for African African-American women at nearly double the rate of white women. So Alpha Kappa Alpha members observe Breast Cancer Awareness Day during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is in October. Breast Cancer Awareness Day arises to raise awareness about the disease, raise funds for research into causes, diagnosis, and prevention, treatment, and cure. We celebrate and we talk about Target 2, which are women's healthcare and wellness initiatives. Alpha Kappa Alpha continues to raise community awareness on those critical health issues impacting African-American women. The primary focus for breast cancer awareness and prevention is definitely with heart health, nutrition, wellness, and the caregivers. Breast cancer awareness focus specialty on early detection through mammograms to improve the survival rate of women diagnosed with breast cancer. Alpha Kappa Alpha has a digital, as you've heard before, mobile breast cancer screening unit that travels to various locations throughout the United States. And they provide mammograms, free screenings for those mammograms. And the goal, again, is for our chapters all over to partner with health initiatives, local clinics, rural health centers, and hospitals to emphasize the need for African-American women to receive regular mammograms. Tonight, we'll hear about healthcare disparities among African-American women, as well as take a look at breast cancer mammography and how those exams locally and nationally and those procedures have disparities that definitely affect women of color. I'm excited to have two women that have extensive knowledge in both of those areas, and they are willing to share their knowledge so that we too can take care of our health as well as we look forward to others and taking care of those that are less fortunate when it comes to breast cancer awareness and mammograms. Thank you.
Now we will have fact or fiction with our undergraduates.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Gray. I'm from the Neuro chapter. And we were going to play a little Kahoot just to get us started on a few things. Okay, if everyone can log into the Kahoot and put in the game pin, and then we can start.
How do you do this?
So you would go into www.kahoot.it. And then once you come into that, it'll ask you to join as a guest. And then you would just type in the number, the game pin at the top.
And the link has been posted in the chat.
Is everybody getting logged on? $32.
Crystal, I'm sitting here looking at it, the screen, don't know where to go.
So when you go in, is it giving you the option to join as a guest?
We can give everyone another 30 seconds who's interested in participating in the game. If you go to www.kahoot.it and type in the PIN number that's on the screen, 3698721, then we can get started, Maya. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start it. And so the first one's true or false. Women who have had their first child before age 30 and breastfed are less likely to develop breast cancer. Is that true or false? True. So the risk for breast cancer increases somewhat for women who have children later in life or who have never had children. Research has suggested that breastfeeding for longer than 18 months might slightly decrease breast cancer risk. Yay. Okay, the next question. Each year, it is estimated that over blank women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer and more than blank will die. So they are estimated that over 2,200,000 women in the United States will be diagnosed, and more than 40,000 will die. All right. It's another true false. It says breast cancer is the leading cause of death in Black women. False. It says heart disease and stroke are the leading causes. Okay, so each year it's expected that about 2,670 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer in the US, and about 500 will die. This is true. Miss Erica, you've been in the running the entire time. So it says the following risk factors may increase the chances of breast cancer, except electromagnetic fields. Using underarm antiperspirant can cause breast cancer, true or false? False. Carrying your cell phone in your bra can cause breast cancer, true or false? Okay, so that is false as well. Drinking several glasses of alcohol a day can up to your breast cancer risk. It says that this is true. It says that having a glass of wine now and again is not bad for your health, but drinking several glasses a day can increase your risk of breast cancer. Black women are more likely to die from breast cancer than white women are. The answer is 42% are more likely to die from breast cancer than white women are. Early detection of breast cancer is the key to a successful treatment. And this is true or false, and this is also the last question. This is true. Definitely going to go get checked and things like that will also have early detection to a successful treatment of knowing if you are likely to have breast cancer. And that concludes our Kahoot game. Thank you everyone for playing.
Thank you, Maya. Next, we will have the introduction of A Survivor by Geronda Pulliam.
Good evening, Saras. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kimberly Doggett Pemberton. Dr. Pemberton is a native of Greensboro, North Carolina, and received her Bachelor's of Science in Early Childhood Education from Winston-Salem State University, her Master's in Elementary Education from North Carolina A&T State University, and her PhD in Teacher Education from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Dr. Pemberton taught in the Guilford County school system, and now she is an associate professor of elementary education at Winston-Salem State. She has certifications in elementary education, as well as birth to kindergarten education, and has a national board certification in the area of early generalist, which emphasizes children from birth to 8 years of age. Dr. Pemberton has authored several articles, and the last book she authored, DIVAS, Diaries, The Road to the PhD, and Stories of Black Women Who Have Endured. And that narrates her doctoral journey while dealing with life and the onset of breast cancer for the second time in her life. And she considers herself to be blessed to be a 2-time breast cancer survivor, diagnosed in 1999 and again in 2009. Dr. Pemberton is a lifetime member of St. James Presbyterian Church in Greensboro, and she's also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She's the proud mother of twins, Brianna and Deontay, and the proud G-mommy of 2 wonderful granddaughters. She enjoys teaching using innovative activities, dancing, laughing, spending time with friends and family, and praising her Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I have personally known Dr. Pemberton for 40 years this year, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Kimberly Doggett Pemberton.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for that lovely introduction. Yes, I am Kim Doggett Pemberton, and I am many things. I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman, a dancer, an educator, a mother, and a G-mommy, as you heard, and that list could go on and on. However, this evening, I am here to share with you Kim Doggett Pemberton, the 2-time breast cancer survivor. So let me start by saying, forgive me if it offends you to give praises for my progress on this journey, but that too is who I am. So let's begin. First of all, I do have a history of breast cancer in my family. So I was always on the lookout for changes within my own body. My first diagnosis, as you heard, was in 1999 after my very own self-check and then a regularly scheduled annual mammogram. If you read the chapter in the book, it mentions more about what happened at that doctor's appointment. And if you want to find out for more details, be sure to read that. But to sum it up, the words of the technician when she said, "We need to take another image of your breast," sent chills and nervousness over my body. That in itself caused me to start thinking. My mind started racing because I had a maternal aunt who had already been diagnosed postmenopausal and a maternal first cousin who was diagnosed premenopausal. At that time, I too was premenopausal. That second image revealed that I was another cancer limb on the females in the family tree. And I was diagnosed in mid-October and began my treatments on Veterans Day, 1999. My children at the time were 4 years old. It was not time for a pity party. It was not time for me to wallow in my sorrow or sit in a corner and cry. I was in it to win it. The fight was on because I knew my children needed me. So I began with a very aggressive chemo cocktail. Now don't ask me why they call it a cocktail when they mix your chemo drugs, because that did not ease my nerves at all either. But after that very aggressive start, it was about 10 days after that first treatment when I lost most of my hair and needed a wig. Now I know some of you are saying today, women go for the bald look or the very close cut. But at the time, I did not think I could pull that off very well. So the wig I did. I proceeded in my wig with 4 rounds of chemo surgery, reconstruction, followed by 4 more rounds of chemo and several weeks of daily, Monday through Friday radiation. I was so determined to not let cancer beat me that I planned my treatments around my work schedule, school weekends, work days, and school holidays and vacations so that I could recuperate during that time. I completed my treatment that next September, and many people didn't know what I was going through because I remained silent, which is not always the best resolve. After that period in my life, I began supporting breast cancer funds, foundations. I began wearing one of my many breast cancer pins throughout the month of October. It doesn't matter if I'm in jeans and t-shirts, sweats, or in a suit, you will find a breast cancer pin on my lapel at some point during the month of October, the 1st through the 31st. It was actually a breast cancer pin that sparked a conversation with one of my coworkers a few years later that changed my world as well as my outlook on my diagnosis. When she admired my pen, we talked about it, and then she followed with that, I thought it was an evasive question at once. Some people might call it a nosy question, but she said, "Have you had breast cancer?" And again, remember, I was silent during my whole process, but I thought, God has healed me, and I should be proud of that. So I need to share this. So at that point, I did. I shared with her, and it was about 5 months later when another coworker was diagnosed, said something to this lady, and she in turn sent that coworker to me. It was a Tuesday afternoon in my classroom, and the both of us sat at the back table with a tissue box between us, because I think I did just as much crying as she did, as caring and listening to her. But we went through this together, and she actually helped me more than she probably realizes that she helped me. I was in fact her sounding board, but for me, she was my coming out of my secret place confidant. And since then, I've shared my experience with as many people, basically by referrals of friends who watched me and knew what I had gone through. And so with that, I started supporting breast cancer research any way that I could. I participated in breast cancer walks. My United Way employee funds were donated to breast cancer research. I go to the post office and spend the little extra pennies on breast cancer stamps, any other paraphernalia to assist breast cancer research. My name is on it. Well, it wasn't until about 10 years later that I felt something different again in my own self-check. And yes, different breasts, but the same cancer. That cancer demon was back. At that time, I was in graduate school. And it might sound funny, but my decision of what surgery and when the surgery and what type of surgery was based on what would be my quickest recovery so that I could get back to studying, back working on my dissertation so that I would finish on time. My doctor was a bit perplexed by what was guiding my decision, but I was determined once again that I was going to win. So surgery was scheduled, and unfortunately, a second surgery was needed 2 weeks after that. So there goes my well-planned schedule of recovery. The second surgery was also followed by chemo and radiation. However, at this time, I made a pact with one of my colleagues, who's a soror, who was also in grad school with me. And she became my chemo partner. She would come to chemo treatments with me. We would bring our books and we would there and work, talk through our research, because I was determined that this terminal degree was not going to determine or be terminal for me. And so with that, 1 semester extension is all that I needed in order to finish my program. And in December of 2010, I graduated with my PhD, and I have been cancer-free since that diagnosis. And so as an educator, I am always looking for the lesson. And so my lesson that I learned was that the diagnosis, the first one, was not for me to remain silent. It was designed for me to reach out to assist others going through. But nobody knew what I was going through. They didn't know what I experienced the first go round because of my silence. So I sum up that story with this analogy. As an educator, when my students don't get their assignment correct the first time, I return that assignment so that I know they have learned the intended lesson. God, the ultimate teacher, returned my assignment because it was for me to help others. So every time I help someone learn more about this breast cancer illness, my assignment is marked with an A+. So remember, make sure you are doing your own monthly self-checks, because no one should know your body better than you. Remember your annual mammograms. If for some reason your schedule gets so busy and you forget, please don't wait until the next year. A lot can happen in that 12-month time frame. And don't remain silent, because your journey may just pave the way for someone else going through. So that's my story. And sisters of Beta Iota Omega, thank you for the opportunity of another A+ for my assignment.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. This is the purpose and the reason why we're here, is so that we can share the stories and understand what it is that we need to do as women to hold each other accountable and partners. So now my role today is to introduce the speaker of the hour, Dr. Antonio Richburg, Vice President of Senior Program Officer for Cone Health Foundation, has nearly 30 years of experience in nonprofit management, including project management, grant management, community building, and strategic communications. She has a PhD in leadership studies from North Carolina A&T State University and a master's degree in public affairs with a concentration in nonprofit and public personnel from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. She also has a postgraduate advanced certification in nonprofit leadership from Duke University. Dr. Richburg attended seminary and is a licensed minister. At Cone Health Foundation, she oversees grant-making efforts addressing access to care, mental health, and substance abuse. While leading the foundation's work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, she is passionate about improving the health status of the greater Greensboro community, addressing the needs of the homeless and other low-wealth individuals, and enjoys working with other community leaders to address those social determinants of health and the critical health issues facing community residents. Dr. Richburg is also chair of the Greensboro Housing Coalition Board of Directors, serves as a co-chair of Grant Masters in Health Behavior Health Finders Network, National Steering Committee. She also serves as UNC Greensboro School of Health and Human Services Board of Visitors, and was recently elected vice chair of the North Carolina Network of Grant Makers Board of Directors. She is a member of the United Way of Greater Greensboro Board of Directors, serves as United Way's Community Impact Council, and is a cabinet member of United Way's American Leadership Initiative. Dr. Richburg received the 2019 Greensboro Chamber of Commerce Change Agent Award for her efforts to empower others, for her understanding leadership for the greater Greensboro community, and for her commitment to cultural diversity and inclusion. She was also recognized in 2006 with the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce 2006 Leadership Medal. And I would say, as a friend that I have known for over 30 years, I am so proud to present to you Dr. Antonia Richburg.
Well, good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you, Donna, for extending the opportunity for me to speak to you all today. We're going to be talking about health disparities, and I'm going to attempt to share my screen and hope that this comes out correctly. Okay, so as we think about health disparities and the impact that it has, particularly among women of color, it's important for us to ask a question. Why are Black people sicker, and why do we die earlier than other racial groups? Why does that happen? Because it's not just a coincidence, it's just not happenstance. There's a reason for that. And so I think that we begin with asking ourselves that question as to why that happens. There are many factors that likely contribute to the increased morbidity and mortality among Black people. It's undeniable that, that one of those factors is the care that we receive, the quality of the care that we receive from our healthcare providers. Black people simply are not receiving the same quality of healthcare that our white counterparts receive. And this second-rate healthcare is shortening our lives. And even when we have insurance, even when we have income, and we compare that to our counterparts, we still receive less as it relates to our health care. And that is unacceptable and something that will have to be addressed in the future if we're going to reduce the disparities that exist in health and health care. Martin Luther King, in 1956, when he was speaking before a convention of medical committee for human rights, he said, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. He was right then, and he's still correct today. And while we all know that, it continues to persist. And that's really startling for me, because this isn't something new. It's not like we discovered 10, 20 years ago that there were inequalities in healthcare. Or inequality and inequities. It's always existed. And the question now is, what are we going to do about it? And how do we become more aggressive in terms of addressing this issue that we all know exists? I saw this chart, and it's by the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and it has I thought it was a really good graphic, because it begins with, when equities are high and community assets are low, health outcomes are worse. So when we have high inequities and we have low assets in a community, then normally the health outcomes are worse. So that means that if we live in areas where there's high crime, there's poverty, there's food insecurity, then of course we expect the health outcomes to be worse. And then on the right side, when equities are low and community assets are high, health outcomes are best. And so the question I ask you again is, so then why are we dying earlier, even when we have the same level of education? I mean, we just heard Dr. Kim Pemberton, she has a PhD. There are many others of us that do as well. There are those of us that are on the Zoom tonight that have master's degrees, bachelor degrees, and yet even with that, we have disparities in healthcare. So why is it? Because it simply is not because of where we live, where we work, how much we know about what we should do. There's something else, and we have to figure out what that is. So I wanted to take a sort of a deep dive into health disparities in terms of the numbers so that we can just look at where we stand. When you see here, maternal mortality and injury rates are higher for Black females, irrespective of income or education level. So that means it has nothing to do with how much money we make or how intelligent we are. We still have higher rates. The second bullet here says Black women experience disparities in infertility rates, stigmatization, and access to fertility care. And that's irrespective of income or education level. And this third bullet, health conditions that disproportionately impact Black women, such as uterine fibroids, receive very little government research funding, meaning that they're spending very little dollars in our government to determine why that's happening. And that's unacceptable. Black women are underrepresented in clinical trials that require consent and are overrepresented in studies that do not. Well, that needs to change because we need to be a part of those clinical trials so they can actually determine what's happening. Because I don't know if you're familiar with clinical trials, but if you're not included in the clinical trial or your population isn't, then the results are really not based on people of color, it's based on the people that were participating in that trial. And since we're underrepresented, then that means they really don't know how to treat us in certain areas. And this last bullet, Black women are significantly underrepresented in key biomedical research data sets, including genomic data, repositories, and related analysis. If this doesn't change, then the disparities will continue. So why do you think African-American women are disproportionately impacted by chronic disease and other health issues? While the diversity of the American population is one of the nation's greatest assets, one of the greatest challenges is reducing the profound disparity in health status of minorities and other health disparity populations compared to the population as a whole. So I want you to think for a moment. Stress is a major contributor to our health issues. And so I want you to just think with me for a moment as I tell you a story. You're sitting in traffic, as we often do, late for an important meeting, watching the minutes tick away, and then your hypothalamus, which is a tiny control tower in your brain, decides to send out the order, send in the stress hormones. These stress hormones are the same ones that trigger your body's fight or flight response. Your heart races, your breath quickens, and your muscles prepare for action. This response was designed to protect your body in an emergency by preparing you to react quickly. But when the stress responses keep firing day after day, it could put your health at serious risk. Coping with the impact of chronic stress can be challenging. And I was speaking with Donna about this over the weekend. A lot of times we discount stress. We say, well, I have a stressful job, or I'm stressed out today, without recognizing when that happens over and over and over, it begins to impact our health. With chronic stress, those same life-saving reactions in the body can disturb the immune system, the digestive, the cardiovascular system, sleep, and your reproductive systems. Some people may actually experience mainly digestive symptoms. I don't know about you, but I have, IBS. That's caused by stress. Some of us have other issues like that impact us. Maybe we have headaches, or we say we have insomnia. I only need 3 or 4 hours of sleep at night. No, we need 8, but we settle for that because we're stressed and we can't sleep. Or perhaps it's sadness or anger or irritability. All those things are impacting our health. And we have to get to a point where we can do something about that, because if we don't, then we will continue to have the issues that we're facing at this moment. So when we look at the impact of stress, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Black adults are 20% more likely to have serious psychological stress than white adults. Black adults living below poverty are 2 to 3 times more likely to report serious psychological distress than those living above poverty. And of course, we understand that, because if you're trying to figure out where your next meal is coming from or how you're paying the rent or utilities, then of course your stress goes up. The question is, those of us who are not struggling with those issues, why is our stress so significant? Black adults are more likely to have feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and worthlessness than adult whites. This is a stressor. So I found this terminology, biological weathering. And basically what it says is that Blacks experience greater physiological wear and tear and are aging biologically faster than whites. And as a result of that, we have more stress and we have more diseases because we're more susceptible to them. And compared to whites, Blacks experience higher levels of stressors, greater clustering of stressors, and probably greater duration and intensity of those stressors. And as a result of that, we're less able to fight off diseases, and certain things continue to reoccur because of the fact that we are constantly stressed. So let's not discount stress, because it does impact every aspect of our body and our health. Now, I don't know if you all are familiar with this book, but if you've not read it, it is a really good read. Just Medicine, A Cure for Racial Inequality in American Healthcare. It's written by Dana Bowen Matthew. And she has some interesting things to say about stress. She talks about, she's really concerned about the question that I asked earlier, why are Black people sicker and why do they die earlier than other racial groups? And she believes that there are a number of factors that cause that. And in 2005, the Institute of Medicine, which is a not-for-profit group, and they changed their name a few years ago to the National Academy of Medicine, and they released a report documenting that the poverty in which Black people disproportionately live cannot account for the fact that Black people are sicker and have shorter lifespans than their white counterparts. So this is an aha moment. It's not about poverty, as I told you before. It's not about education. So then what is it? And so in this report, what they say, and now this is, again, the National Academy of Medicine says that by lower quality healthcare, this means concrete inferior care that physicians give their Black patients. The National Academy of Medicine said that minority persons are less likely than white persons to be given appropriate cardiac care, to receive kidney dialysis or transplants, and to receive the best treatment for stroke, cancer, or AIDS. This is from the National Academy of Medicine. They are acknowledging that we are receiving inferior care. It concluded in this report that by describing an uncomfortable reality, some people in the United States were more likely to die from cancer, heart disease, and diabetes simply because of their race or ethnicity, not just because they lack access to health care. So I say to you, this health disparities is a race issue. It's not just simply economics. We were born Black and we're treated differently as a result of that. No matter how much money we have, regardless of our insurance, there's still some disparity in terms of the way that we are treated. And stress is one factor, but there's so many others, mainly just the quality of the care that we receive. And so in light of these studies, some scholars indicate that racial disparities in health can be explained by looking to the individuals who are choosing not to prescribe the most effective health and life-conserving treatments to people of color. The argument is that if people of color are sicker and dying at younger ages than white people, this may be because physicians have racial biases. These biases cause them to give their patients of color inferior health care, and in so doing contribute to higher rates of morbidity and mortality. A lot of this is what would be called implicit bias. Sometimes they don't even recognize that they're doing this. And one thing that Dr. Dana Matthews said was that she was clinically trained at Harvard, and she recognized that when she began her own private practice, that she was doing exactly what she had been taught, and she was treating her patients differently based on their ethnicity. And then she recognized that she had become a part of the problem, that she was indeed treating people of color differently than others, simply because of her clinical training that said that if I prescribe XYZ to this particular patient because of their race, they won't take the medication and they won't adhere to the medication or to the treatment. So let me give them something that they will take, or let me give them an over-the-counter medication, etc. And she said she had to go back and apologize to some patients and to just reorder the way that she was working her practice, because she recognized that she had become a part of the problem because of the clinical training that she received at Harvard School of Medicine. And so it's not a myth that doctors are trained to treat us differently. It's true. It's happening every day. And so we have to be cognizant of that, and we have to be diligent in what we do as patients, as Black women, and insist on getting equal care, and insist on finding out, doing our own research, what is the best possible care that I need to receive? What is the best practice in this particular situation? And let me make sure that they are offering me all the possible opportunities and not just one option, which is what happens often. Here's just a list of things. Did you know? One thing is, did you know that well-educated Black women have worse birth outcomes than white women who haven't finished high school?
Okay.
Now that's something to pause and think about, because that's pretty significant, I think. Did you know that African-American infants are more than 2.4 times likely as white infants to die in their first year of life? That's startling. And in North Carolina and in Gifford County in particular, we have a high infant mortality rate, one of the highest in the states. In spite of all the work that we've done to address that, the number just does not seem to go down. So we have to continue to focus in on that. Now, there are many that argue that if we adjust the racial disparities for indicators of class, we'll see great reduction in or even elimination of racial differences. But after all, hasn't the middle class and professional Black women, haven't we made it? I mean, we've arrived, right? And so, of course, at this point, we should have optimal care. But how many of us know that we continue to get diagnoses that indicate otherwise? And so we have to figure out how we address this problem. So when we're drilling down on the numbers, why are we disproportionately impacted? And we look at the chronic health conditions, and we see right off the top that 13.8% of African Americans reported having fair or poor health, compared with 8.3% of non-Hispanic whites. We look at the bottom there, 42% of African American adults suffer from hypertension, compared to 28% of non-Hispanic white adults. The United States is home to stark and persistent racial disparities in health and health coverage, chronic health conditions, mental health, and mortality. When we look at the leading causes of death, African Americans have the highest mortality rate for all cancers combined, compared with any other racial and ethnic group. 11.4 per 100,000 African American men of African American women died by suicide. Now, when we look at the suicide rate and we think about the stress, and we talked about the constant stress and the impact that has, this is one of the reasons why we are seeing that happen. And so I wanted to spend the last few minutes focused in on breast cancer. It's estimated to impact 1 in every 8 women in the United States. African American women have a 31% breast cancer mortality rate, the highest of any US racial group. Among women younger than 45, breast cancer incidence is higher among African American women than white women. Why is that? When we look at the stats here, we see that 41,760 deaths estimated for women in 2019. Less than 5% of cases occur in women under 40. That's a great news to hear. But then when we look at 2,030 new cases and 500 deaths estimated for men in 2019. And of course, we're focused on women today, but a lot of us have men in our lives that we're concerned about. And so I was startled to see that number, was not expecting to see that. And then 124 women in every 100,000 are diagnosed every year. breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer among Black women. It's the second most common cause of cancer death among us, surpassed only by lung cancer. To start, Black women are less likely than white women to receive an early diagnosis. Because, you know, if we receive that diagnosis in stage 0, stage 1, we have a greater chance of recovering. But when we receive that in stage 3 and stage 4, then we struggle to survive. And so that's one of the things that we have to think about. And when Dr. Pemberton was talking about, you know, her self-breast exam and how she was able to determine it herself, that's important for us to do. And of course, continue to get our mammograms. One does not exclude the need for the other. We need to do both. But there are risk factors. One, of course, being female, getting older, as some of us are, family history, drinking alcohol, as we learned from the game that we played with the UNCG students, not exercising. I raised both hands. I need to do more of that, right? But when you put it in this context, that it could actually increase the probability of cancer, then I think it moves to higher on your list of things you might want to figure out how to have time to do. Having children over 30, after 30, overweight, high socioeconomic status. That didn't say low. Did you see that? It said high. Why is that? Stress is a major factor. Not breastfeeding, being tall. These are all risk factors, which is really interesting. I'm excited that there's something good about being short. So changing our reality, testing. Every year beginning at 40, we should have a mammogram. It's important for us to do that. If you over 40, you haven't had one, call tomorrow. Clinical breast exam every 3 years. If you're 20 to 39, every year 40 plus. Breast self-exam every month, beginning at the age of 20. I suggest when your child starts their menstrual cycle to encourage them to begin. So when we do those breast self-examinations, we perform at the same time every month. That way you remember it. So if you do it the first day of each month, that helps you to remember. You check for changes, as Dr. Pemberton said, whether you're lying down or in the shower or in the mirror, and then know what normal feels like for you. Because if you don't know what normal feels like, and you feel anything that any sort of, bump or whatever, you're going to think that something's wrong. So you need to know what normal feels like. And if you're questioning it, go see your physician. Don't wait. And so as I end my presentation, I just want to say that, of course, we've been talking about this all over the country, but Black lives indeed do matter. And Black women, we're underrepresented in the data, in the research that goes on. And that's one of the reasons that we have the worst health outcomes. And the other is that sometimes we don't adhere to what we know is right to do. We need to exercise more. We need to reduce our stress level. We need to slow down. And we need to be really focused when we go see our physician. And I always encourage people to ask 3 questions. So what's my problem? How do I address it? And why is it important for me to do what you've said to do as a physician? And then play that back for him. Tell me one more time. What's my problem? How do I address it? And why is this important for me to address it in this manner? And once you're armed with that information, then it's important for us to do our job to ensure that we're following doctor's orders as it relates to that. And it's also important for us to do our own research so that we know what's the best options for us, because they're not always looking out for us. No matter how much we might like our physician, they're not always giving you all of the options that are available. And so we have to ask that second and third question. Don't just take whatever they say at face value. Get the second and third opinion. I've certainly appreciated the opportunity to talk with you about health disparities, and we'll be happy to engage in any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richburg. That information was overwhelming and wonderful because the disparities are incredible. And a lot of times what stuck with me in that, first of all, that book, Just Medicine, I got to put that on my list of new reads. because that's really important to hear what she's saying. But bringing it all home with the disparities and how doctors are trained just in general not to even offer some of the options, and how diligent we have to be. And so if anyone has questions, certainly, I guess I can put them in the chat. I'm not sure if people are muted. Hearing none. Good. They'll put them in the chat, and maybe at the end, if they have some that they're just some burning questions, we can certainly address those. But thank you again. Wonderful information. Wonderful information.
Thank you.
Oh, I do see one in there. Let's see. Wait a minute. It was up and then it was gone. But we can address those at the very end. That would be
Yes, you should be
great.
checked. You should be checked if you have a history of breast cancer in your family and you're 23. You should be checked.
Awesome. There's somebody else. Okay, and we'll monitor those in the chat room, but we're gonna go move on with our next presenter. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Nora Jones. She's Executive Director, has served on the Partnership Project Board of Directors for 10 years, and has been Executive Director of the Partnership Project since 2010. She graduated from Virginia State University with a Bachelor of Arts degree, and from the University of Nebraska at Omaha with a Master of Science degree. She is a founding member of the Greensboro Health Disparities Collaborative and the founding president of Sisters Network Greensboro. She is a member of the Leadership Council of the American Cancer Society, Providence Baptist Church, auxiliary to the Greensboro Medical Society, and auxiliary to the Old State Medical Society. She is a friend that I've known for about 3 years since I've been working with the Breast Cancer Awareness Days. She's always willing to share and helps me with just the awareness out in the community. We love partnering with Sisters Network. So without further ado, please welcome Ms. Nora Jones.
All right, thank you, everyone. Good evening. I hope everybody can hear me. I just want to say thanks to Kim, who was one of our charter members of Sisters Network, and Dr. Richburg and I met years ago with work we did with the Partnership Project, or at least I was doing with the Partnership Project and the Cone Health Foundation. It's so good to see you. And a lot of the points that were made resonated with me because I do work in health disparities as well. And what I've learned, this is our 10th anniversary year of Sisters Network. And in 10 years, I've learned a lot about the community. I wasn't born here, but going to these different churches, over 60 churches, and listening to the women and meeting them, I found that a lot of them, of course, are uninsured, but they also have a fear and distrust of the medical community. And so I've been asked several times to examine their breast, and I tell them I'm not a physician. I'm not supposed to be doing that. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of educating women about advocating for themselves. When they go in to see the doctor, if they don't feel comfortable about what's being said to them, that they can always ask the question to kind of make the physician look at them a little differently and say, the treatment that you have recommended for me, is that the same protocol you would recommend for your wife or your daughter? And a lot of physicians I've heard, women who've tried that question, will take a step back and think a bit about the answer. So that's what we're trying to do. We don't want them to look at women of color as being all the same or as being less than. And thank you both for the comments you've made. Tonight, I'm just going to be brief. some of the things you may not know about Sisters Network, about some of the things we do, Sisters Network, Inc. is the only national breast cancer organization in the United States for African American women. It was started in 1994 in Houston, Texas. Karen Jackson is also a soror. She went over in Atlanta, the more recent Boule in Atlanta. She is a soror, and so am I. The Greensboro chapter started in 2010 and is comprised of breast cancer survivors, and we also have members who have never had a diagnosis but support the cause. And our mission is to bring national and local attention to the devastating impact that breast cancer has in the African American community. And I found that to be true with my own sister, who was treated in Virginia. As you know, there are not many oncologists of color. They may be foreign, but very few African American oncologists. And she could not relate to the one she had, and she would call my husband, who is a pathologist, to ask his opinion, and she would often be crying. I thought that was a sad scene for her to have to go through. You want your doctor to be your partner on the journey, and you want someone with whom you can comfortably relate, and that didn't happen for her. All right, some of the things we do are to host the Gift for Life Block Walk every year and health fair. Some of you have participated in Block Walk. We also have the symposium, and Kim Pemberton has been a speaker at that symposium. And we try to visit a different church every month. That's called our Pink Ribbon Initiative. All right, here we have our first executive board in 2010. Some of you may know these ladies. Linda Summers, Rachel Jackson died in 2017 from metastatic breast cancer. Cynthia Grant, Christina Young, who's on the faculty at UNCG, Jeanette McCall, and yours truly. Next. All right, I'm gonna breeze through this. We used to do this event, it's called First Ladies Brunch, and the target audience was the wives of ministers, the first ladies. So we did this for 2 years. Next. As you can see, you were supposed to wear a church hat. Some did, some didn't, but I think all that wore them were very beautiful that day. Next. Okay, more First Ladies Brunch. Here we have community outreach, although it's a misnomer here because these ladies were actually in Houston for the National African American Breast Cancer Walk called Stop the Silence. Anybody can go, so this will be a great road trip. If you're interested, it's wonderful to see. A great time. This is at UNCG for an event held there. Some of you may be familiar with Pink in the Park. Next. And this is one of our church visitation Sundays, or Pink Ribbon. Next. This was actually an AK event in Charlotte. So we're often asked to make appearances and give talks in other localities. Next. These are some other, you might recognize the minister here, but we have been to quite a number of churches. In fact, some are so familiar with our group, they want us to come back at the same time in October every year. But we have to remind them that breast cancer is every month for us. So, we can't always go back in October for your special programs, but we do try. Next. These are the dates for the block walk. We started in 2011 at Warnersville for 2 years, and Carl Klug Multicultural Arts Center, Peeler Recreation Center, Windsor Recreation Center. We went back there. And in 2019, we were at the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club. This is our biggest event of the year. Next. These are pictures from Block Walk. Some of you may be familiar with the people who are featured, and Each team is given a list of addresses and they go and distribute breast cancer information and try to encourage the ladies who answer the door to come to the health fair where they can get free clinical breast exams and other health screenings. Everything is totally free of charge. Next. And we're so proud of our volunteers. Normally we have 100+ volunteers, students from A&T, Bennett, UNCG regularly volunteer for Block Walk. Next. As you can see in the upper left-hand corner is our group that year and other photos. This is a large group and they have to go through training in the morning and before they hit the streets to go door to door. And this is something that Sisters Network Houston started to try to go where the people are because the population we're targeting is sometimes very hard to reach. So going to them makes a difference. Next. All right, large groups. And we are so thankful that we have these volunteers to make it all happen each year. Next. All right, and thank you. I just want to say, if you know anybody that's newly diagnosed, Sisters Network also provides gift bags for newly diagnosed patients. But what I found in 10 years, the most important service that we do provide is emotional support. As Kim said, a lot of women just want to talk. And so you want to talk to someone who's been there and done that. And so we have women who have been through cancer 3 times. And so I am always inspired by their journey and how well they have come through. It taught me a lot about living this life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones, for sharing more insight on Sisters Network Greensboro with the community and our program tonight. We applaud you for your work in our local community and spreading the news about breast cancer awareness. Thank you again. Next, I will present some special Beta Iota Omega presentations from our chapter to the community. Last week, Cone Health hosted a virtual women's only 5K for breast cancer awareness. We had 14 members in Beta Iota Omega and their family to participate in this virtual walk, and collectively they raised $435. So thank you to everyone who participated in the walk, and this donation will go towards helping with mammograms in our community. Next, from our Target 2 Women's Health and Wellness Committee, we will be donating $200 to Cone Health Women's Only 5K for our 2020 Breast Cancer Impact Day. So this will also help towards some mammograms in our community as well. And Mrs. Jones, you will be excited to see this. We are also donating $300 to Sisters Network Incorporated from Target 2 Women's Health and Wellness. And this will also help assist with mammograms in the Greensboro community, Guilford County. So thank you for your work again. And I know this will be great use. For closing remarks, let's give a virtual round of applause to all of our presenters this evening. This breast cancer program has been very informative, and I hope that everyone gained some beneficial information from this event. At this time, I would like everyone to take a couple of minutes to fill out our online evaluation that is in the chat so we can gather appropriate feedback on this event. While everyone's filling out the evaluation. I will continue on with our closing remarks. The Beta Iota Omega chapter would like to thank Dr. Antonia Mont-Richburg, Dr. Kim Pemberton, and Ms. Nora Jones for your insight and information pertaining to healthcare disparities, breast cancer survivor, and breast cancer support group information this evening. A special thank you goes to our undergraduate chapters at North Carolina A&T State University, Bennett College, and the University of North Carolina at Greensboro this evening. I'm sure everyone learned something new from the Kahoot game we participated in earlier this evening. I would like to send a special shout out to Donna Braswell Bray, who has served as our chapter breast cancer impact day coordinator for the past 3 years, as well as our Target 2 Women's Healthcare and Wellness co-chairman, Rolita Dawson and Geronda Pulliam. And I thank all of our chapter members and families who participated in the Cone Health Women's Only 5K walk. And last but not least, I would like to thank all of our members of the community, as well as family members of our chapter members that took the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this very informative program this evening. Ladies, please remember to do your monthly breast exams and get a yearly mammogram. Please share this knowledge. Please enjoy the remainder of your evening and good night. Thank you. Has everyone had time to finish the evaluation?